This video is sponsored by Grim Hollow Transformed, the pinnacle of dark fantasy D&D, now updated to the 2024 rules. Has its last week on Kickstarter, like right now. You can get the campaign guide and the player's guide, 2 massive books, each containing everything you need to make your games dark and gritty. All of which is by Ghostfire Gaming, who I absolutely adore. Become a monster with one of the 12 transformations balanced for 2024, like werewolves, vampires, or specters. Or hunt them with the new Monster Hunter class, which you can playtest yourself by joining the VIP Discord. Grim Hollow also comes with full virtual tabletop conversions like Roll20, Foundry, Alchemy, and even D&D Beyond. There's over 40 unique subclasses that all have had rules changes and balances. The campaign guide also comes with over 100 unique magic items. And if you back today, there's tons of really cool stuff that you can get, some of which is only going to be available for the Kickstarter, like dice, poster maps, the special edition book, a dice bag, and a DM screen. You've only got a few days left, so go back Grim Hollow Transformed with the link below, either in the description or in the comments. So Wizards of the Coast sent me the 2024 Dungeon Masters Guide, which is crazy. This is like first contact. I've never really been sent anything from them before. And it's really good. I even got the opportunity to sit down with Chris Perkins and James Wyatt and ask them my questions, which was so much fun. They were a joy to talk with. Couple of disclaimers. Wizards of the Coast sent me the watermarked PDF. I was supposed to receive a physical version, but I don't have it yet. But I am not being paid by Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro to make this video or make any claims about the Dungeon Masters Guide. A part of the agreement is that I make this video in the first place, but I was gonna do it anyways. But it's important that I clarify that I wasn't told to say anything. All of my opinions are my own. There's also only certain parts of the book that I can show, but I can talk about whatever I want. With all of that out of the way, the book's really good. I also, look, not trying to clickbait everybody, but I didn't read every single word in the book, but for now, these are sort of like my first impressions from reading a good majority of the book. Starting out, it's beautifully designed. Every art piece on every page blew me away. While they stick to a definite style, there are a variety of artists who fill the book with really cool renditions of D&D adventures. In the 2014 Player's Handbook, I feel like it was like primarily the Forgotten Realms, but in 2024, much like the Player's Handbook, there is this variety in the different settings. You've got art pieces of Greyhawk, the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Ravenloft. My favorite part is whenever there's like an art piece that has characters in it, it's the characters from the Player's Handbook that are the classes or the subclasses. It's a fun little thing. Getting into the actual book itself, the one thing that stands out, the primary reason why I love it so much, is the purpose of it. In comparison to 2014, which was a Dungeon Master's Guide that really helped you world build and make cities and dungeons and a pantheon of gods, and then also it had some variant rules in there that you could use as a DM, and then also, I guess, the basic rules to the game that were always, to me, kind of felt like, oh yeah, that's also in there. 2024's clear goal is to help you understand what to expect when you take up the role as the Dungeon Master, going over more of the social contract that we all figuratively sign when we sit down to play D&D.
My name is Chris Perkins, and I am the D&D Creative Director.
And I'm James Wyatt, a Principal D&D Designer.
It's so great to talk to you guys. The first chapter is, I think, one of my favorite parts, because it really dives into like the social contract of running a D&D game. Was that kind of your intention with designing that chapter?
I'm pretty sure we used the phrase social contract more than once in a variety of contexts. Absolutely. I mean, you're right. Anytime you're gathering a community around a table, you have to have norms in place that everyone agrees to and that contribute to the function of the group, right? That advice, some of it was scattered through the 2014 DMG, some of it got more of a focus in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and some of it was in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. But we sort of pulled it together and said, here's the sort of groundwork of communication and setting expectations that you really need to do to make sure that everybody's safe and having fun at the table.
I love that. That being something that a lot of new people, especially when they're reading this, will get to like have that information forward first, I think is huge. The entire first chapter dives into the psychology of being a DM, what you might do, feel, what your players expect, and how you can accommodate for them. But then reinforcing the idea that the DM is still a player. This is huge! Even helping you analyze what kind of DM you are and what kind of game, adventure, or campaign you want to run. Gritty or cinematic, serious or silly? You're gonna go hard on the rules, you're gonna go soft on the rules? How do you enforce rules in that kind of manner? There's this one line in there that I really like where you enforce rules as a way to take heroic actions, and it specifies a little subbar that like, yeah, everybody can stand in a line and pass a bucket to each other in a turn, and physically, because of the 6-second rule in a turn, that would break the sound barrier. And they use that as an example to be like, look, the rules aren't the most realistic thing in the world. They're there to take heroic actions. They basically break the fourth wall and are kind of like, hey, listen up, DM. None of this makes sense. This is all a tool that you get to use to run a cool game. And I like that they present it that way instead of being like, this is the greatest role-playing system and there's nothing wrong with it. It's all perfectly balanced. It's not, and they're accepting that and they're helping you understand. This DM's Guide also likes to analyze the player, which was a little bit present in the 2014 version, but they've really doubled down here. It outlines every type of player and how you can make a game suited for them. There's even a section on how to prepare to run a game, what you need, and how much you can get done based on how much time you have. Like, if you've only got an hour to prep, they make a list of like, all right, here's what you can get done. That's so great! There is also a section about what if nobody can ever meet up to play? They give some advice about how to schedule a game. I don't know. I love that. I really didn't expect the first chapter to just be 19 pages of really good DM advice. So what do you think was the most challenging part of designing the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide?
For me, it was just the reality that if we'd wanted to, we could have filled 500 pages. The hard part for me was just condensing and fine-tuning everything so that we're only delivering advice that's tried and true, that we stand behind and say, this DM, this will work, and not clouding or occluding that advice with stuff that the DM doesn't need,
right?
Like tons of different variant rules and stuff like that. It's like, okay, let's just arm the DM for success and making sure that we're not accidentally cutting anything out that is intrinsically valuable to the game and to the DMing experience.
There's a really big merit in game design in withholding information. When you give your players or even like your audience only a certain amount of information, they get to use that and work with that. But if you overload, like the perception can be entirely wrong. Where you may look at this book and if it's 500 pages, it could be like, there's too much in this book and I don't know what I want to use or what I want to add into my games. And I think that priority is great. Another part I love about the book is how its information is presented. You don't have these just huge blocks of text that are in the chapter called rules. Instead, everything is really neatly organized. So if you're skimming through the book looking for a specific thing, you get a really good gist of what information you can absorb just at a glance. And to be fair, the 2024 Player's Handbook is also organized in this way, and I love it. You can skim through some of the chapters. You just get a gist of what you need. And I think that is super important for people like myself who have a hard time reading to begin with.
You bring up a very interesting point, is people absorb and learn things differently. And one of the sort of key tenets that we clung to is this idea that wherever possible, if we can show as well as tell, we should. That we should give people examples of what we're talking about. So that's where the tracking sheets come in. That's where the sample adventures come in. That's where the sample campaign is. It's one thing to tell a DM how to build an adventure, how to build a campaign, but some DMs will learn more quickly by seeing examples. Riffing off of that.
Yeah, that's huge. I think about myself when I first started DMing and when I had the 2014 DMG, and my favorite part was the tables being like, ooh, I can just like make a random adventure and then I'll take that and I'll turn it into my own thing. And that was so much fun, and it feels like there's way more of that in the new book.
Sounds like your enthusiasm for tables is matched only by James's.
I love tables. Anytime there's a table at anything, I'm like,
it is a fantastic way to spark your imagination. I mean, you can just look down the list and pick something, but the tactile experience of picking up a die and rolling it and looking at that one first, maybe you're going to say, that's not doing anything for me, and you roll again. Or you'll roll once and say, no, that doesn't work, and look at the other options. But like something, at least about the way my brain works, maybe it's not everybody, but something about that process really makes sparks fly in my head.
Some of the most fun I've had in the past couple of weeks is James and I built a community together. We built a settlement using the random tables in the settlement section.
That's so fun.
Yep.
That's
we
so
did it again
fun.
with adventure ideas too, and
Right.
just you and Todd and I sparking ideas around based on the random results we were rolling.
And they
I
didn't
love
suck.
that.
That's the best part.
Yeah, that's great. I did that a little while ago where I had my chat vote on a random dungeon and they made their own dungeon. So we used the tables in the 2014 one and they got to pick all the rooms and stuff like that. And they always voted on doors, and it was just hallways and doors and then a room with the maximum amount of doors, and they called it the Dorngen, and it was a whole thing, and it was a lot of fun. We eventually ran it. It was ridiculous. I think everybody died except for like one character. I don't know how that happens in a room full of doors, but it was very funny.
Like page 64, all about
really?
doors.
Oh, they'll love that. Guys, page 64. We got our doors. The Creating Adventures chapter is so cool, not only because you have my favorite part, random tables, but the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide goes into detail about what kind of campaign you could run. It's not just like, oh, this is the default D&D adventure to make. Here's how to make a really good one. It's more like, okay, what kind of game do you want to run? Are we Spelljammer? Is it Strixhaven? Dark Sun? There's Dark Sun mentioned in the book. All right, and then what kind of game do you want this to be? Do you want this to be like gritty? Do you want it to be rules heavy? And then what's like the theme? Political intrigue, a mythic fantasy, a mystery, war, and then it just gives you a ton of ideas about how to run a game like that. And then if that's not good enough, there's a bunch of little pre-made adventures where they're like, okay, your players are 7th level, here's an idea for an adventure where they go to a ball and have to uncover a mystery. I imagine this book to be really useful for whenever you get writer's block. You don't really have any ideas, but you want to run a game and you have a few. This DM's Guide helps you kind of organize and connect those ideas. That's really great. This book is honestly just really good for story writing. So whenever I'm writing or designing a book or a game, I've got that one part that's like my baby, the one part I'm really, really proud of. What is that for you guys with this book?
So I always have weird babies.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, my weird baby is the dragon eggs table. Here's all the ways that dragons can reproduce in your campaign that are not what you expect.
That's great.
So my weird baby.
Chris is dying right now.
I'm dying because somebody could take that quote so out of context. It's going to be at the title. It's going to be at the top of the article. I have weird babies. James Y.
James Y. I have weird babies. I have weird little dragon babies.
So in the 2024 DMG, my weird babies are the paragraphs in the cosmology chapter talking about adventures on each plane. I started thinking about adventures on the outer planes in particular in a different way, and tried to put stuff in there that will spark DMs' imaginations to really sort of dive into the mythic underpinnings of fantasy and tell stories that go a little deeper into the human psyche and spirit and explore that possibility. Otherwise, they're just weird adventure environments.
For me, I'd say the part I'm most interested in people reading is the Bastions chapter. I'm looking forward to players reading it. It's like going to be maybe one of their first contacts with the Dungeon Master's Guide. Mm-hmm. And the players who really groove on Bastion building might actually see other things in the DMG to latch onto and become DMs themselves. But in the meantime, I just want to hear the stories of the Bastions that they built and let them make interesting, fun choices to customize their Bastion and make it as fun an activity for them as character building.
The 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide provides tons of ideas and resources to make any kind of game. Was there more of a design focus on campaigns and stories over rules and mechanics?
I wouldn't say one has more of a focus than the other. I think it's more of a balance than a focus. Story and mechanics together are kind of what creates the D&D experience. Yes. You can't really have one absent the other, I think, and have a structured D&D game. And I think the chapter breakdown of the DMG very much reflects that.
I think compared to the 2014 DMG, there's less sort of weird experimental rules and more, okay, let's talk about how to hook characters into the story of a campaign, that sort of thing. Maybe a rebalancing in a direction that now you have both in equal measure.
That's really great. Yeah, I think that with a lot of variant rules, it was always like, when am I supposed to use this? When do I use this? And I've kind of noticed that with the new Dungeon Master's Guide, it's not that everything is optional, but they're more just like, they're there to help you if you need it, which is I mean, immediately, the way that information is presented to you automatically changes the way that you think about it. Obviously, there's new rules changes, which I haven't dived really deep into because I wanted to get this video out in time. So I think there will be some deeper rules changes that we'll be comparing to the 2014 later down the line that I'll make my own videos about. But there's not as many as you would expect. The magic items have seen a lot of the same treatment that spells have gotten, where they aren't fundamentally different, but some more confusing ones have just been updated to make more sense. Potions are a bonus action now, and a bunch of potions now have art, so you can see what that potion looks like. Look, man, I'm just really happy we got the healing potion art. That's great. I wanted that. I specifically wanted that. The other two sections I want to touch on very quickly are the entire Greyhawk campaign setting that just exists within the book, which is really cool just to have as a default D&D setting, kind of going back to the roots of D&D. It's just cool to have that in there. So we're still getting that world building aspect that we really had in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, where you can see an example of how you can create your own world and how to organize the information and what important aspects you would need. And the Bastions section, obviously huge inspiration from Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers. I even took a similar route. I wanted to have low-level starting bases that you could upgrade throughout your adventures that I put in the Questonomicon, which were a ton of fun to write. And it's cool that we've got kind of like an official version of that in the DM's Guide. It's a very detailed, fully fledged system, and from what I very quickly read of it, it seems pretty cool. And then finally, this is more of just a fun one. I want to know what your guys' favorite magic item is. It doesn't have to be a new one. It doesn't have to be changed. I think just in general. I mean, if I get to talk to both of you, I need to know what your favorite magic item is.
So I've discovered of late that my favorite magic item is probably the Hat of Many Spells. One of the reasons why I like it, not simply because it's tied to the old cartoon series and we have a blow of presto, unleashing a lightning bolt from it, but it creates excitement at the table. When something goes wrong and suddenly you're casting a spell or an effect, you're generating an effect that you didn't intend, that creates a random moment that can then turn the whole course of an encounter. And I love magic items that can do that. I also had on my list of favorites the Cloak of Billowing, because it's a totally mechanically useless item, but God, do players just love cosmetic stuff. If you want something new that I like, the Enspelled items. There's like the Enspelled Armor, the Enspelled Weapon, the Enspelled Staff. I like these because it's kind of like a mini create your own item thing. You just attach a spell to the item and that suddenly the item can unleash that spell. Cool. I think that sort of sucks up a lot of potential magic item design into kind of in a fun way.
There was a really cool design technique with that, the Artificer from Eberron, where you get an ability later on that lets you do that. I always thought that was so unique. I was like, you can cast the jump spell on boots, and now you have like cool jump boots. Like, that's cool.
Today, my favorite magic item is the Cube of Summoning, which is new. And the story of its creation is kind of hilariously bizarre. We redesigned the Cube of Force very last minute in realizing that it just has never worked throughout the entire history of the game. The Cube of Force has been totally bizarre and impossible to use and play. So Jeremy actually took it and redesigned it and made it much simpler, much more useful, and much shorter. So we had a hole on the page to fill, and the Cube of Summoning fit in that hole very nicely.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. We found awesome art to illustrate it, a little Jack-in-the-Box type thing. And what it does is lets you cast some of the most fun spells in the game that we imported from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything into the Player's Handbook.
So you guys had this hole that you needed to fill, and you created this item. That's such a cool origin story for this magic item. I love that. It's so much fun.
And oh my god, that's the reality of book publishing, I'm afraid.
Maybe I shouldn't have revealed our secrets that way.
Also, the art is just amazing. When I turned the page and I saw that Eberron one, the Sharn getting destroyed by the Glob of Annihilation, I was like, this is so cool. Oh my gosh.
A lot of new favorites in this one.
Yeah, seriously. This was so much fun. Thank you guys for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your enthusiasm, Jacob. It was really a bright spot in the middle of this.
Oh, great. Well, that's great. Yeah. Overall, I'm really excited for everyone to see this book and read it when it comes out. Purely by just the first couple of chapters, I really genuinely love it. It is a huge improvement from 2014. It really culminates a lot of how DMing has been perceived in the past 10 years and offers some really helpful guides. The book also has these really cute forms that you can print out. One of them is basically a consent form for your games, and that's cool that that's just in the default DM's guide. That's what we've been wanting. I think in conclusion, I'm really happy about the direction that they took this book. Okay, yep, that's it. Bye.